Okay, good evening, everybody. We are back again, Legacy Talks. Um, so today we want to talk about father presence, and so I encourage you if you want to share our link with your friends, your families. This is you know a show that is meant to help families. You know, especially when it comes to what's best for children. And so, we have our links, both the YouTube link, the Facebook links. I'm just sending it out on the comment section. Please forward them out. Today we'll be having we have somebody new, a guest who is going to share with us the importance of having fathers at home. The importance of having fathers at home. Um, I believe there are many fathers that are making every effort to be in the lives of their children. Some genuinely want to be there, for their children, and some are not just interested in being there. Um, so, you know, for those that are there and for those that are not there or not willing, it's just an opportunity to just connect and just join us tonight to talk about this very topic of being present in the lives of children. Um, I'm just trying to share the link to friends and families, and I encourage you to do the same. You can join us on the YouTube channel. That is, the link is posted in the comment section. Please forward it to your friends, your families, your loved ones. Uh, and if you have any questions, please feel free. Uh, please feel free to post your questions in the comment section as well. If you wanna just be able to come on directly and ask questions, by all means, we will give you the opportunity to come on live and ask your questions. Um, so I'm just sharing the link. Please, do the same. Just forward it to your friends, your families. This is uh, uh, this is a show that is blessing many families, um, and so we want you to be able to share it. Just share it with, just share it with families. Just share it with families and your friends. Please forward the link. Um, please forward the link. I'm just trying to get one of our guests on right now to connect. Um, okay, just share the links. Share the link. Um, so today we wanna just talk about father presence, um, and the impact it has on families. So I'm gonna bring Bill uh, Edgett on. Bill has been with us for the past couple of weeks. Bill, it's a pleasure to have you on tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate
And
it.
I see Dr. O'Connor also joining as well. So Bill, a dad, very passionate about children, and he's fighting as much as he can to have his children in his lives. Very, the best thing to do for our children is to fight to be in their lives. Sometimes we have to fight, unfortunately, but it is that is what we have in our system today. Also, tonight I'm also bringing on Reverend Dr. Albert Osai Akono on the stream tonight. He happens to be my spiritual father. He's a man of so much passion for families. Um, he loved the institution of family. He's an advocate for families. Um, his desire is to see the institution of family intact. And he believes that it's the best for children, it's the best for fathers and mothers, that families, stay together as one body. He's also a counselor, marriage counselor, family counselor, and also an immigration consultant as well. Um, he is the senior pastor of Fruitful House Church, and just because of his passion for the institution of family, and he's also an advocate for fathers present in the lives of children. And based on his experience and how much passion he has on this very topic, I felt it was very important for us to have him on tonight to talk to us about fathers being present at home and in the lives of their children, even in the midst of divorce and separation. A father still has a responsibility to be there, to be available for the children. Dr. Akono, it's a pleasure to have you on as well. And
It's my pleasure to be here.
To have you on. So, Dr. Akono, my first question to you is, how important is it to have a father at home, both a biological father and maybe a stepdad or a father figure at home?
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Bill. It's a pleasure being here. I'm humbled by your introduction because I'm just an ordinary man. um, I'm here to learn and also share experiences. Um, I don't think I know it all. I think I've just had an experience which is worth sharing, and that's why I'm here. But before I start, I'll read something from the National Library of Medicine. That's a government website of United States, and it has some data available that I was reading through some days ago, and I just want to read some of those things. And this is a government website. It says using data from 3 waves of national survey of families and households. So this is comprehensive. Said we examine association between adolescent family experiences and young adult well-being across the range of indicators, including schooling, substance use, family-related transitions. We compare children living with both biological parents, but whose parents differ in how often they argue, to the children in stepfathers, single mom families, and then we assess the extent to which differences can be understood in terms of family income and parenting practices. Now, the findings suggest that parental conflict is associated with children's poorer academic achievement, increased substance use, and early family formation and dissolution. Living a single mother and stepfather families tend to be more strongly associated with our indicators of well-being, although differences between these family types and living with high conflict continuously married parents are often statistically uh, indistinguishable. Income and parenting likely do not account for association between adolescent family types and later life outcomes. They concluded that while the child does better on average living with two biological married parents, the advantage of two-parent families are not shared equally by all. And that's important. I'll come back to that later. I'll mention another finding. It says association between family structure and child well-being is frequently cited. Children who grow up with two married parents tend to fare better than others. And under the subsection family structure, conflict, and child well-being, it says growing up without both parents is associated with a host of poor child outcomes. Children from single parents and step-parent families have higher poverty rates and lower levels of educational and occupational attainment than children who grow up both with their biological or adoptive parents. And that I thought it was huge, the impact of the two parents in there. And even when they are in there and they are fighting, the effect it has on the children. I come from the background of someone who believes in God. So my point of reference is always God. I believe strongly that God created us differently, man and woman, to fit each other. I believe strongly that God has given us specific responsibilities. There's a responsibility of the mother, which we cannot downplay, amazing office, but there is also the office of the father, which we shouldn't dare downplay. Our society, our government is somehow working against the system where as you grow up, you tend to think that it's only mom you need in the house and not dad. And that is far from the truth. The system sometimes work against even fathers who are willing to be there for their children. And that we can address in another way. We can address through putting pressure wherever it's available. Because if we don't change this as fathers, it becomes the norm. And I think fathers should rise up and say, this is a great office. It's an honorable office. There are a lot of fathers who want to be in the lives of their children. And the government should appreciate that, and society should appreciate that. And sometimes they give a percentage of a few people who don't want to be there. And I think that is wrong statistics, and their data, they themselves, their data is showing that they should encourage the fathers who be at home. And there are bigger portions that I'll mention later on in my submissions.
Thank you. That was a very powerful intro, and very good data that you've shared. You've shared with us. Bill, you have any question?
Well, I'd like to just go over some of the things he covered of the statistics of having a father or both parents in the children's lives. And statistically, when both parents are in the children's lives, there is a much greater chance of them being successful, not dropping out of school, not becoming addicted to drugs or having substance abuse issues, and go on again to have happy and healthy families. When you start breaking the families apart and the high conflict, the children grow up in this dysfunction, and instead of seeing a normal family bond and attachment, they don't develop the normal attachments that you would in a cohesive family unit, and that breaks up their development process, and it slows them down. And a couple of experts that are talking about this and discussing this right now are Jordan Peterson and Warren Farrell. Warren Farrell has written a book called The Boy Crisis in the United States, and him and Jordan Peterson have discussed that and other topics related to these issues, they believe, such as the high number of school shootings in the United States, which is related to children coming from fatherless homes. I believe almost 100% of the statistical active shooters in schools have come from fatherless homes. So that's a statistic that you just can't dismiss. And I just agree with your assessment of children growing up with both parents are much more likely to be well adjusted and have good attachment bonds and be able to be more productive in society.
Thank you.
That's good, Bill. Um, that's very good. And Dr. Connell, I mean, you grew up uh, with your dad and mom, always there. I believe there's a lot that you learned, from your dad. How has that impacted your life? I mean, many of us, depend on you for counseling and for direction. And I believe this all stems from, the kind of upbringing and the influence of your dad in your life. Can you share with us how that has transformed you and how that has positioned you today to impact many lives?
Very good question. I took it for granted. I thought, well, that is the norm. Everybody should have two parents in the family. Although I had friends who were in a single parent family, it didn't mean a lot to me until I started hearing stories and I started seeing the outcomes. And I began to realize how lucky or blessed I am. See, my father was poor. Let me use that. Um, we were a lot in the house. At one point, we were about over 30 in the house, in a three-bedroom house. And so you can just imagine. But the joy of having this man there. Quite recently, I told a story of my dad. And it's just now that it's coming back to me. My dad was a school teacher. He was a principal before he became a pastor. And I remember in the school days when my father is coming from school, when school is closed and he's coming home to the bungalow where we lived, we only knew he was coming because all the household pets were all flying behind him. The pigeons, the chicken, the goats were bleating. It was a norm. But now I realized the man was bigger than life because we were all expecting him to come home. And it was a great expectation. It's like it was a great relief to me as a young man to have him back in the house. My mom was a great mom, but that father factor did something to me. Of course, if my mom was a single parent, she would have done a great job, but it can never be compared to my father as an addition to the house. I didn't see my father do a lot at home, but his presence. When my father is out of the house, I'm not able to sleep. I didn't know why. Now I grow, I understand. Because I was scared to lose my father. So I was always waiting when I hear he's in. Oh, I'm gone. I'm asleep. I don't even care any longer. I'll wait for the following day to have a chat with him. Having a father there was a gift. And so I decided I have to give the same gift to my children. And I hope the government will support me to do this. Because, as I said earlier, I don't think the government is into having the two families together. Because any little thing, they will encourage the separation and the breakdown and they make it worse for the children. I think it's an easier option for them than to find a better solution. So if you ask me the question of my father's impact, it gives me the heart to be there and fight for my children. That will be the legacy he left for me.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Bill?
I agree. Like I said, children, as you just told in your story, how just the mere presence of your father in your life impacted you. And you didn't realize that now until you saw how it impacted people that didn't have the father in their life. And that's one of the biggest issues we have with
Yeah.
with alienation or parent or children not being able to see both parents, is families that grew up with both parents don't understand how damaging this is to the growth and development of children, and they have no frame of reference to know how damaging or unhealthy it is. And as you said, you've recognized this by dealing with families in your work as a counselor and trying to help families stay together. I'm sure you've noticed there's been a much greater increase for the need for such counseling, but also when you have a person that is not, there are people that tend to have the same behaviors that cause these situations, and those people need specific counseling to get help, and traditional family counseling or marriage counseling usually doesn't work. And I'm just wondering if you've noticed that with any of your cases.
What you're saying, Bill, is very true. Society is evolving. Things are changing rapidly. I think we have to have a better way of dealing with the family structure and the family system. Let's go back a little bit to history. I mean, if you look at the makeup of a man, he's suited to work from outside the home. And the makeup of the woman is suited for the woman to work in the house. Now, we need the man at home as well as we need the woman. So how do we deal with this? We know that the two wars, the World War I and II, took the men out. Industrialization also took them out. And so this is a tension. We want to be at home, but we need to feed our family. What do we do? And this is where we have to have a better way of counseling when it comes to families and relationships. Because in our modern, postmodern lifestyles, things have changed.
Yes.
I always ask this question: if my wife was the Prime Minister of Canada, how will the family structure be? What are we going to do? And who does what, in what capacity, and how is that going to affect the children? And so family life is dynamic, but the principles still remain the same. I'm from the traditional family. I believe that the man is the head of the house. I believe that strongly. And it doesn't mean it's a place where the man will enforce his rule. I believe it's a place of service, because the buck should stop at somebody. We cannot say everybody rules. When we have two heads, we have a monster. There should be always a way of dialogue or maybe working things through, but when there's no agreement, there should be a decision. That's why we have a prime minister. That's why we have leaders. That's why we have mayors. We don't have two mayors in a city. And so that's the same in the family dynamics. But it seems that society, or maybe government, doesn't understand this. And they try to push the family apart in any way possible. I'm not excusing things like abuse and the rest. Well, it is prevalent. But majority of the cases, if you listen to families who are separated, is based on sometimes lies. It's based on somebody's figment of imagination. And somebody should be able to read between the lines. I have this 80-20 rule saying that 80% of us are not evil. 10% of us are too good. And 10% are not so good. And so if we take the majority, most men want to be in the house and want to be in the life of their children. Most men. Some will even go to extremes just to see their children. And so it is not true. I've not seen the data saying that men don't want to be in the lives of their children. I've not seen any proof from anywhere. And so when these things are being pushed, I think we have to have a voice where we are speaking and say that matter too. And thank you very much for having this program, because for once we're going to hear the voice of the men. It's interesting because we hear the women all the time, and it seems the men are silenced. And so my father keeps saying that if the game don't come to tell their story, the hunter will always have a different story. And so the story out there says that men don't want to be family people, which is not true. We need to hear the voices of the men. And sometimes the pain in the hearts of men who are trying hard to just be with their children. There should be a way we can reconcile this desire to the reality on the ground. Men have to be out there. I believe men are the source of, the word father itself means source. They produce, they give. The way we have been made and formed, we are the seed givers. And so how can we reconcile the fact that the father has to be out there, but still be in the house? I believe it's just one word, presence. And that is from my experience, because my father used to go out there and work, but when he comes home, there's one interesting thing my dad used to do. He'll come home, and I said we were 30 at one point in the house. He will make sure he speaks with every one of us in a way. You have a meaningful talk, meaningful touch, meaningful, like everybody will have a share. But one word he keeps asking everybody, have you eaten today? Have you eaten today? Have you eaten today? And that was so comforting, because if I'm hungry, I know when dad comes home, that is going to ask me. His presence. He carried some presence, which I said earlier on, I took for granted. I knew, okay, yes, that's daddy. Yeah, that's how daddies are. But we can reconcile this with our presence. We may come from work tired, but the presence. Saying hi to Albert and Bill in their rooms, the presence. Or just opening the door to see whether they are okay, your presence. They know that he cares. That is always there. I think that's my submission.
Amazing. Bill?
Any
question?
I agree. It's and that's part of what's so damaging to the children. It's the loss of that presence that they have grown accustomed to when they are in the family unit, and all of a sudden one of those parents are not there, and it's very distressing to not have that presence, as you say, in their life, and that can really change their path of development. It starts to change how they make attachments with other people and in society. It can change their whole life depending on how good or bad the separation process is before the children become accustomed to it and can return to their normal growth and development, because a divorce will stop their growth and development for a period until they adjust and they learn to cope with their new situation.
One of the encounters I've had in the system, pretty much when I had to go through my own personal process, where you have family physicians, you have some counselors that basically advocate, for every little problem, disagreement, argument. One of the first things or recommendations they give is separate, which is very, very unfortunate that, these are people that should be advocating to bring families together, find solutions for whatever issues that may exist. One very unique encounter I had with a police constable with the region of Peel, and he was very present when things went off. But one advice that this man gave me is that fight to be there for the children, fight to be in their lives. And for a police officer to give me that advice, I was like, wow. It didn't really sink in, but I sat back later on and said, no, this is very powerful. For and anytime I hear something bad about the Pure Regional Police, I always come to their defense, because there's just a human being who believes that the presence of a father in the home is very important. I mean, this officer went to the extent of arranging time for me to see the children. He will call my children's mom, come to the police station with the children. For the father to see the children, he needs to have time with them. This police officer will go buy presents for Christmas, and bring it home to these children. And I step back and I'm like, wow, this is different. This is so different. And so I've been, when I hear, bad things about, especially the Pure Regional Police, I'm like, no, 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 no. The experience I've had with most of them, it's been very positive. It's been very, very positive. And one of the things I don't understand though is why would physicians, and sometimes, Dr. Connor, you have some pastors actually who would encourage separation. How do we process that? How do we process that in our society today?
It's a bit complex when it comes to that point of separation, because let's say in terms of abuse, it's now out of the hands of the counselor.
Mhm.
The law will take its course. Apart from that, I think the rest we can solve it. We can just give it a shot. Um, I mentioned abuse because we know of stories where abuse led to killing of one of the partners,
Mhm.
and so that is very dangerous,
Mhm.
and that is something we cannot even try to encourage. But apart from that, there is always family conflict. Did my mom have, this with my dad? Yeah, they used to bicker all the time, until they were 90 years. They were still talking. I remember my late father. No, he would just get mad with my mom for 2 minutes, and then you see them, chatting at the corner there somewhere. So I said, why do you guys even fight? It's like they are always there. So this is the norm of life. We get used to each other. They talk back at each other. I remember one thing that I called my mom when I lost my dad, and I said, Mom, how are you doing? He says, Yeah, I miss your dad. I'm like, really? You guys kept bickering all the time. He says, Albert, I don't even have anybody to even fight with any longer. Presence. I
Yes.
miss him. Bickering at the corner there because he's complaining, your dad likes to fight all the time. But it's just old age and all those things they used to do. My point is this: the first thing to tell a couple is not to separate them. I keep saying this over and over again, that I don't counsel divorce. And I explain that I don't have the training for it. I may mess somebody's life up. Maybe some counselors who have the training for it. I'm not trained for that. And number two, also, I think that if we've not tried, we should not encourage it. We can't encourage divorce if we've not tried, because maybe some tools will help somebody to stay in their relationship. Some tool will help a family to stick together. It looks like an easier way out, but it doesn't help society. It doesn't help the family structure, and it's poison to the children. And so I don't think it's something anybody should encourage, that any little thing you have to leave the family. No. Because sometimes there are mistakes that people do. And as a Christian, I know the word forgiveness. And those mistakes, love can cover it, and then we move on. And so I don't think it's the best thing to do to just encourage people, people who have married for years, and something happens and you're encouraging them to separate. And it's not maybe abuse or one of those things. No, I think I don't want to use any harsh word, but I don't think it's the best thing we can do.
So, Bill?
I agree with his assessment. I think part of what is happening to the generation from the last generation and coming forward, the divorce rates have been higher and higher. And as those divorce rates have escalated, it's also caused more dysfunction within the families. And again, that's become more of the status quo of how families are in today's society. You have about a 50% divorce rate. So almost half of the children growing up aren't with both parents. This is going to continue to expand until it continues to break down the family, and you see more children dropping out of school, more children having emotional problems, more psychological and emotional issues. And again, you can see the start of that process with the decline in the number of marriages. The divorce rate has dropped, but so has the number of marriages. So it's many people aren't getting married. It's the system is discriminatory when it comes to awarding custody and child support in Canada, and I have the numbers I can show for that, and I believe every other country in the world is roughly on par with Canada. It's not to say that both parents shouldn't get custody, but just the way it is right now, it seems that overwhelmingly single mothers get custody of the children, and they get spousal support, and it's very low numbers of single fathers in Canada and fathers that get spousal or child support. So it's a completely different situation for parents facing divorce in this country. And until that's equal, you're going to continue to see an imbalance. And with that imbalance, there's people that are going to use the ability to manipulate the system to their advantage. And that's part of what is causing this escalation in divorce and the increase in numbers of families divorcing and the dysfunctional family unit. It's they're growing up in this dysfunction, and they grow up and teach their children the same thing they learned because that's what they know. And we need to address that problem. So even when families divorce, they can do so in a healthy manner, so the children still develop good attachment bonds and don't break that the growth and development cycle through this divorce. And that's what we need to focus on. The children are the victims in this. They're the innocent victims of divorce because they have parents that they didn't choose. And they didn't choose the situation they're in, and they love both parents equally. The only time children reject a parent is when at a young age is through coercion or manipulation. They're taught to hate or fear one parent. And that is so psychologically and emotionally damaging to their development because they're learning to hate part of themselves because they recognize that they're part of both parents. And it's so damaging to their growth and development. And it's just really coming to the forefront of scientific studies now in education. I'm sorry, I might drop out for a second. My phone is dying, but I can log back in with my computer.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. Thank you.
No, one of the things that I see happening in our society, Doc, is as you had mentioned before, the system is actually fighting against fathers and actually encouraging mothers to walk away or separate from their husbands. We see this happening in the church, in the body of Christ as well. And looking at God's expectation for the institution of marriage, we know that God himself hates divorce. God also hates lies, but not to be judgmental. We see this in the church. How do we bring awareness to the church? I'm talking about the global church, where I don't have the data, to back up some of these arguments, and that is to say that you'll find a lot of single parents or single mothers, mostly in the church, and deep down in their hearts, even though they are in the church, um, they're actually destroying a man's life, trying to prevent a father from seeing his or her children. How do we address this issue in the body of Christ? It seems to be a widespread issue.
Yeah, divorce and separation are equal when it's in the world or in the church, unfortunately. So the data I've seen shows the same in the world and the same with the church. So welcome back, Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, the difference is not that much.
Mhm.
Now, how do we help deal with such an issue? There are so many factors that affect the separation and divorce.
Mhm.
The environment you grew in is um, equally affects the way you think and the way you behave towards this relationship.
Mhm.
Traditional relationships, the friends who are around you. Um, uh, let's assume somebody comes to you and says, in an abusive relationship. You may be wondering, how far is this abuse? Somebody is going to get hurt. And so you may say, well, you may have to be safe and get the children safe to safety. But that word abuse also, I've heard that, I've realized as a counselor that it's being thrown out there anyhow. There are types of abuse: emotional abuse, physical abuse, financial abuse, and all those abuses. Somebody may say, I'm being abused because they're not getting their way. And if I'm not getting my way, then I'm being abused. That cannot be classified as abuse. Those are things that we have to streamline, deal with it, talk about it, seek counseling and help. It's a very difficult subject to deal with such issues in the church. The church is there as a help and as an agency to help families. It's like preaching. Today I went to preach, but some may choose to listen and others will choose not to listen. It's the Holy Spirit or God who helps to reach out to these people. What we can do is to keep teaching the truth of the Word of God, the need of the mother and the father both in the house. Sometimes it's just maybe pain or unforgiveness that is, making these things happen. Maybe one parent did something to the other one, and they are hurt so much they don't want to see that person again. But this is the difficulty of divorce. Divorce is the only death that you still see the person. The relationship is dead, but you have to deal with the other person because most of the time there's a child involved. And so this other parent doesn't want to deal with the other parent. And so they are using their child as a pawn. As Bill said rightly, it affects the child, it destroys the child in their development, in everything, the education, their health. So education will help. Because when people know that if you take the child away from this parent, especially the father, These are the consequences. Some will think again, and I think we may win some. We will not be able to win all.
Do you think it's deliberate for the system to fight against fathers?
That'll be a huge assessment to make. I suspect that that's the easier way out.
Mm.
You understand? It's like in the system, it's easy to become a number than the government fend for you. Let me speak about the family system and the structure that I grew up from. We had this family, nucleus family, then the extended family. Now we always have a father figure, a grandpa who is the head of everybody, the head of the family. In such a system, nobody is left behind. No child goes to bed hungry. The child is not a number, the child is a person. Your needs are tailored. They know that this person, this is how their nature is, and they tailor solutions to you. That's a difficult way of dealing with families. So the easier way, I think, the easier way out is to give everybody a number. You are number 6752. We give you $1 each, and that's okay. If there's a problem, we separate you. One stay here, one stay there. We should want to have our peace of mind because there is no data to show that children in foster homes do better than those in the family. Some children are taken from so-called, because it's not all abusive, so-called abusive homes, they're taken to worse foster homes.
Mhm.
And so I think it's a way, it's an easier way out for the system.
Mhm.
They can just throw some few dollars over to the person to take care of their troubles.
Mhm.
They cannot sit down and have a family meeting and deal with a child who is maybe unruly or maybe a parent who is not understanding. No, I think it's just an easier way out. And secondly, there are so many advocates for the women's cause. And you know, politicians want votes. And so the more voices they have, that's how their policies go. That's why I said thank you, Mr. Agbanti, for this wonderful, wonderful program. Because if our voices are heard, politicians go with the people's choice and the voice of the people. If more men begin to speak up, they'll realize that equal parenting is important and it's a vote winner. You know, when politicians hear that magic word votes, they sit up.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Yeah, sorry, I was on my phone. My phone died there. I didn't have it charged up enough for the entire broadcast. So sorry I dropped off there for a short time. I'm back now on the computer. Yeah, one of the things I'd like to bring up is when parents are together, even though there might be troubles and children might see conflict with the parents stay together, they see that conflict resolution. And that is what is missing from a lot of children today is they don't get to see that conflict resolution, so they don't deal with a lot of their issues and they just move on. And again, that's part of deterioration of the family unit and society. Uh, People are unable to resolve conflict in a healthy manner. Because it's easier to walk away and not deal with it. So again, this just perpetuates the cycle and creates the next generation of people that follow this pattern because it's a learned pattern, it's a learned behavior, and we need to. That's one of the biggest things that we need to teach people. Like even if you go through a divorce, it can be very healthy, and instead of having your parents separated and they're divorced and they're fighting and they continue to fight even though they're divorced, it can be a positive. You now have, instead of just a mother and father, you have a bonus mother and a bonus dad, if that could be the situation. And you have, instead of just two people that are loving and providing stability and teaching healthy attachments and bonds, you have four people now helping to do this. So it's important that children learn how to resolve conflict, because if they grow up without ever having to resolve conflict, they'll go through their whole lives doing the same. And that's what I see as a big part of the problem. People, they don't want to resolve the conflict, so they just walk away, and they don't have those attachment bonds or proper attachment uh, abilities, or they've missed that part of their development process, and they didn't learn how to develop proper attachments that can serve them for a lifetime. Instead, they're adverse to conflict and try to avoid that, and that in itself prevents you from being able to establish real connections and attachments. So I see that as one of the biggest issues, and that's part of what is keeping this situation going and perpetuating it. Children are learning this. This is a learned process, and they need to learn, even if the parents divorce, this needs to be taught to them, conflict resolution, and their parents need to understand that if they're talking badly about the other parent, they're also talking badly about the child. And that's what most parents miss. And again, it all leads to a breakdown in their attachments and their ability to resolve conflict. And everyone needs conflict resolution skills, because that's an essential part of everyday life. So without that, that's where the people are having, or the children generation growing up, having difficulties with addictions, or not being able to, not progressing as far with an education, or it's one of the factors that cause what you named earlier, of all the different statistics that show how detrimental divorce is on children and their growth and development.
Bill, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, if we're going to run away from every problem, what are we teaching these children?
Yes.
Because if we can teach them how to solve conflicts, society wins.
Yes. Everybody wins.
Yes. We teach them how to forgive.
Yes.
Society wins. So I think the way that the government wants to have a quick solution to this, then they should have an agency which has time, experience, expertise, and the love for families to deal with these issues, and the government should take its hands out of this.
That's very true. That is very, very true. My final question for you, Dr. Connor, is on equal shared parenting. What Bill and I, pretty much, and the whole other groups have made it, our personal businesses to create awareness on equal shared parenting. That is what's best for children. It's in the best interest of children to have both of their parents in their lives. Equal shared parenting in the sense that there's no abuse, there's no neglect or abandonment. In the absence of all these three, shared parenting is the best, for children. Now, one of the things that we want to do is to be able to reach out to a lot of the faith groups. And we want to draw some insight from you. What would be the best approach from your perspective to reach out to the churches, to the mosque, to all the different, faith groups, just to create awareness, because this is happening pretty much in all of our societies. In your view, how do we reach out to them, just to be able to bring everybody on board? Because the vote matters.
You're asking me how to reach out to people?
No, to Dr. Connor. Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
Great. No, not at all. I'd gladly take this one.
Well, it seems all backgrounds, all cultures, all faith groups believe almost the same thing, that the father is needed in the house as well as the mother. It is a common thread. It's common sense. And so reaching out to them will not be difficult at all. I don't know any religious body who will say no to this. The only thing is that we need some advocacy. As I said, the voice of the women are heard. It seems the pendulum had tilted against them and they rose up, and some have gone beyond what they should do. We need the voices of the fathers to advocate for the father. In the 80s, I used to watch some shows, and I don't want to mention them here for legal reasons, make the man look like he's a useless being in the house. And this is what society was encouraging. I know it sounded funny, but it had effect on the subsequent generation. And that is where all these things started, where, well, you don't need a man in your life. I don't know where we got the idea from. I don't know who put that in our heart, but it is totally wrong. And we have to start reaching out to each other. Talk to our brothers, some who are in it, some who are oblivious to this, because as I said, I grew up from a family, loving family. I didn't know all these things were going on out there. Reach out to people, tell them the stories, let them know, because some parents and some fathers are suffering. Equal parenting is common sense. It's scientific. It is spiritual. It is good for the country. It's culturally relevant. Anywhere you put it, equal parenting is the way to go. Let's put it forward. Let's explain it. And I believe that human beings are kind enough and sensible enough to understand this if we are speaking out. The first thing we have to do is not to stop speaking about these things. Possibly somebody is there who never knows that, a thing like that matter too is out there, because there are more and more people suffering this abuse of the father or the abuse of the man in the house. That's what I'll call it. And we need to rectify it by making our voices heard. Because if our voices are heard the same way when the women spoke out, they were heard, we will also be heard. So let's start reaching out one person at a time and make it our focus, knocking at those doors and inviting them on, listening to their perspective, why they think the way they think. Dialogue develops. And so I think we can do that as well.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Yeah, we need education. We need, as you've highlighted, TV shows from back in the 80s. They portrayed fathers, as you said, in a useless role in the family unit. This is not the case, and you're right. That has become the culture of today's society. That men are replaceable. They're not important in their children's lives, and they don't need to be there. They don't serve any purpose. It's not true. Both mothers and fathers serve a very big purpose in the growth and development of their children. And to deprive them of that, it stunts their growth and development. And they don't, generally speaking, they will develop pathologies from this, then grow up perpetuating this with their own family. So we need the education, because a lot of people that are going through these situations don't know how much damage they're causing or how damaging these circumstances are. So we need to start educating everybody about this. Instead of telling families not to talk about this, we don't talk about these issues in public. This is a family issue. No, this has become a societal issue. This is affecting everyone, because the numbers are so high now that it's divorce and being denied time with your children, or children being denied time with their parents. It's happening, or has touched almost everybody in our society today, that they know somebody, their neighbor, their relatives, their family members have gone through this. And again, the innocent victims of this, the people that have no choice in what is happening in their lives, are the children. And we need to educate people how to handle these situations better, because a divorce could be very healthy for a couple that are just not getting together, and there's constant conflict where, and I'm not trying to promote divorce in any way. I'm saying that there are situations where the parents will just not ever be able to communicate properly and get along. And that's not good for anybody. And if they can separate and do it in a healthy manner, that is better for everyone involved. So it's not the optimal solution, and it's not the solution for everyone. And we like to see parents stick together and be able to raise their children, but it's honestly, not everyone can do that. There will be divorces, there will be conflicts that will not be resolved. And as long as they can come to a better situation by not resolving this conflict, they're resolving a lot of conflicts and making the situation better for everyone involved. So people
Amazing.
need to understand this and learn how to recognize these situations and provide people with help so they can get through these situations, which are the most traumatic and stressful that any people face in their lifetime. The divorce, it's the number one stressor in people, and the most difficult thing people go through in their lifetime. And they need help to go through this process for it to be healthy for everyone involved, because right now it's toxic for everyone involved.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Connor and Bill. Thank you so much. It's been very informative. Looking at things from the perspective of the church, and also from an experienced family and a marriage counselor. If by any chance any family needs help or any form of counseling, you can connect with me, and I'll connect you with Dr. Connor. He's one of the best, family counselors and a marriage counselor he counseled me as well, and I can say that he's one of the best that we have. And for those of you that are watching, we are back Thursday from 9 p.m. It will be a rebroadcast from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. So if you missed tonight, we'll have it available for you on Thursday as well. But as Dr. Akono said, and as Bill said, reach out to other dads, yet to be dads. Reach out to your children as well. That we are doing the best that we can, for us to have a voice as men and as fathers. We don't have much more time. We are doing this for our children, trying to leave behind a legacy for them. And it's so important for our society, because our society without fathers, we've seen the gun shootings in the US. We've seen a lot of the children ending up in the juveniles, fathers being incarcerated. This is all, sometimes somebody can lie and get, a father, an innocent father, in prison. By God's grace, I had a lot of accusations against me personally, but the system, the police, they can filter between who is being truthful and who is lying. But having said all this, you can always connect with us. You can connect with me through through Facebook. If you wanna come on the show and share your experiences. If we just want to pour out, sometimes talking and pouring out helps so much. It's a form of therapy. And so I encourage people to just speak out, just pour out what's on your hearts. But please, Dr. Connor and Bill, if you can just stay on the line. I'm just going to play a quick outro, and then I'll be right back.